What you're doing is you're reaching out to these hundreds of people who already trust you and like you as a person, right? And you're planting a seed in their mind. So a month from now, when they're talking to somebody about the market and it comes up, you really are top of mind now for them to refer you. Whereas if you stay distant or they just see your stuff on social media once in a while, it's not as compelling as if they talk to you voice to voice.
Welcome back to the show, Coach Amy Lassid. Good morning, Amy.
Good morning, Charlie. Good morning, everybody.
Happy Friday. Today's discussion is one that you've heard probably every day
for
months. And it is, hey, Coach, I need more listings. That happens to be listings is our RE/MAX Allegiance theme of the month. So we have different education offerings and speakers that bring us information on ways to get more listings. And it is rather timely because although this was planned a few months ago, the listing crisis, the lack of inventory is probably, or inventory, I should say, is probably at historic lows. It's funny, I get on calls with coaching clients, Amy, and every call they're excited about talking about, they think they're the only ones that week that want to talk about getting more listings. And I'm like, you're the 20th person this week that I've heard this from. So it really is an issue in really all markets, right? I don't know that anybody's really spared from this, from this problem. And I want to be careful calling it an emergency or a crisis or something else, making it dire, because then that scares potential sellers from actually listing. So you have this, you have this whole problem. You have people that are listening to the headlines. You have people that are just going online and they're really realizing, I can't find what I want. I was talking to a coaching client, I don't know, about an hour ago, and she's got 6 listings in the pipeline, but they're not budging, right? And they're not interested in a bridge loan. They're not interested in moving twice. We talked about, if it's your 10-year plan to move into your dream home, does it make sense to list your house? It sells, everything goes into storage, right? And this is, the movers are doing this, right? It's not you at the self-storage. And then you're in temporary housing for 4, 5, 6 months. If that's the means to your 10-year, to the end of your 10-year plan, is the short-term pain worth the long-term gain? I think that we've got to start kind of, just kind of thinking about that. But anyway, because not everyone's going to get exactly what they want when they want it in this market. And there's some people that are just like, okay, I'm just going to stay put.
Yeah.
And that's fine. Their motivation's just not quite as high.
Yeah.
But then they're running the risk of rates being higher when they are ready to move, prices going higher when they're ready to move. So the whole topic is relatively interesting. But for today, we're going to be talking about the one thing that most agents aren't doing to get more listings. And we have talked about this many times. So I won't completely steal your thunder. Where do you want to start and introduce this topic that's not really new, but it is absolutely something that not every agent is doing?
You can totally steal my thunder. I think we have a lot. I think we have a lot to tease apart here on this topic. Go ahead.
So it's doing annual home checkups, aka CMAs. Yes, that's where I was going with that.
So talk to your people.
Talk to your people. Agreed. The one thing that most agents are not doing.
Yes, is
call everyone in your database.
No, I just mean heading. It's communicate with the people who already know you. That's the one thing. But keep going. Now you're giving details. It's awesome.
Well, yeah. So, and we were at this conference. I think we talked about this last week. We were at this conference a couple of weeks ago, and it was a Tom Ferry event. And he said, how many people are in your phone? How many conversations is that per day to talk to all those people 3 times this year? And he said that to his best clients, to the clients that make on average, I don't know, what is it?
Yes.
$500,000-$600,000 a year, right?
Sure.
And he only brought that up. Why? because he knows that we're not doing it.
Yeah.
So, and then taking that a step further, you and I have chatted about this before. Who should be in your phone that's not in your phone? Right. So it's okay, you're calling everybody that's in your phone, but what about other people that cut your hair, your dental hygienist, your doctor, the guy that cuts your grass, all of those people? Are we talking to them about real estate, or are we assuming that somebody else is and we don't have a shot?
Right.
Oh, well, my doctor must, he must have 20 patients that are realtors, and, they're all talking to him about real estate. So why should I? I had a coaching client that she got a listing from her doctor.
Sure.
Right. So if we all have the assumption that somebody else is doing the talking, then actually nobody's doing the talking, right? Nobody's having the conversation if we're all assuming that somebody else is having the conversation. So is everybody in your phone? Are we calling them? And then other ways to keep in touch. We're going to talk about the CMA tool in a minute. But, every time I ask the question, I think one time somebody said yes. But every time I ask the question, it has been dozens, if not hundreds of times.
Yep.
Does everybody that you know, have they all heard from you by voice in the last 90 days? The answer is always no.
No.
But I want to chase, other, expireds, FSBOs, which is fine.
Yeah.
But those are the types of people that are going to beat you up over commission.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to beat you up over price.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to say they're interviewing 10 agents,
mm-hmm.
right? Where the people that already know you, like you, and trust you, and have transacted from you or are referring you to someone, those people are less likely to fight you on price, fight you on commission, right? And interview other agents. Who would we rather work with? So you and I are not here to say that FSBOs and expireds are a bad idea. They're not.
No.
But let's start with the people that we know.
Yeah. And I would even clarify, I appreciate what you said about grow your reach and reach out to the people that you don't think you can get. But I feel like that's even trying too hard, because there's hundreds of people in your phone that it would be easy to get, and you haven't called them either. So
Right.
Don't overthink whether or not you could land your doctor. Call everybody else, a bare minimum, right?
Yes.
So I would say step one, call every single person you have a phone number for and say, this has been the craziest real estate market in anyone's, by any measure, right? No matter how long you've been in the business, this is unprecedented, the pace of the market, the demand for housing. And so I'm being proactive and I'm calling every single person I know to ask, have you had any thoughts of selling? Or are you considering selling your house this year or next year? Or who do you know who's thinking of, even considering selling their house sometime this year?
Yep.
Right? Now, keep in mind that 90+% will say, no, I'm not. And no, I can't think of anybody. And is that because you're a bad salesperson? No, that's because that's the national move rate. Not everybody moves every year. We're not going for a percentage of all humans. Like they're all moving. Now we just got to convince them to choose us. Nope. Very few of them are going to move. So don't be put off. Like you talked to 12 people in a row and every single one of them said no. Right. Because 90% of all people aren't going to move this year. You are fishing for that less than 10%. Charlie, you and I both know when you look for a healthy farm, gosh, if you could find like 7.5% turnover, you'd be excited.
Right.
So when you Google it, like the national move rate is between 11 and 12%, but that includes tenants, that includes renters, right? So when we look at what is the sales rate of all homes, it's less than 10% of a neighborhood is going to sell. So first things first, don't be put off and don't feel the need to extend the close or try to talk them into it, right? They're not required to move. What you're doing is you're reaching out to these hundreds of people who already trust you and like you as a person, right? And you're planting a seed in their mind. So a month from now, when they're talking to somebody about the market and it comes up, you really are top of mind now for them to refer you. Whereas if you stay distant or they just see your stuff on social media once in a while, it's not as compelling as if they talk to you voice to voice. So I think it's absolutely vital that you call every single person that you have contact information for, give them this simple script that you're just being proactive to look for homes for the buyers that you have, because we all have more buyers than listings.
Yep.
That's the reason the market is this way. right? The millennials have moved out of their parents' basements, and people have left huge cities to live in other more affordable places, and we have a housing shortage. We do, right? In most places. The places that aren't experiencing this, people aren't choosing to move there right now. So this is not pushy to just share this, right? So share it, plant the seed in their minds. So you're going to get a certain number of yeses, you're going to get a certain number of appointments, but more what you're doing is setting the filter in their mind to listen for you to get the referrals in the future. And what you've done is you've created an army of mouthpieces for you. Calling expireds, what are the chances that that expired homeowner is going to then be your mouthpiece and start talking to other people?
Right.
And when their neighbor, like, I was talking to this random agent who called me. No, right? So your time is so valuable spent talking to the people you already know. So that's what I think is absolutely step one. And you address some of this, Charlie. I think you need to be prepared for the objection, which you mentioned, which is, I don't know where I would go. Like, I'm kind of interested, but if there's so few listings available, if I sell mine, where would I move? Right? So you may get some strong maybes. You may get some healthy maybes. You have to be prepared to handle that objection. So Charlie, do you want to talk about all the things that you could do to offer to handle that objection?
Sure. So, Realtor Amy, if I could find a place to live, I'd list with you tomorrow, but I'm not seeing anything.
Right. Well, first things first, I think that may be true. Like, I tried this for myself. I have considered moving for about 2 years in a row to be in a different part of town. And recently I decided, oh, what the heck, I'll do it. And I looked and really, I started liking my house better and better, based on what's available. And honestly, I'm one of the bad ones. If I bought another house, there's no way I'm selling this one. I'm keeping it. So I'm going to make the problem worse. But I don't see anything that I like. And it's not just the price. Like, I kept upping the budget. And for a single woman, I shouldn't have to pay that much for a house. But I was willing to get what I want. And it just didn't exist. And I'm not motivated. So what we have to do is, first things first. And I had this conversation with a coaching client yesterday. She shared with me that she had basically talked somebody into this, and they're really unhappy. Like, she convinced them that it would work out. And so they went under contract and they really never found anything they wanted. And they had to just buy something that they weren't happy with, and they had to move, and they're really unhappy. So I told her, look for the more motivated people, first of all. It's a numbers game. Talk to hundreds of people. Don't talk to 3 and try to convince one of them that it will work out. So you address that too. Make sure that they're motivated, find out what their reason is for wanting to move, and make sure that it's a good idea for them. Then we have options to offer them. And you mentioned bridge loan. That's a way to do it. You could buy without, but that's buying without selling. Tell me how that helps.
Well, you're able to, exactly. You move and then you can sell, and you're pretty confident that you're going to be able to sell quickly. So the bridge loan period is going to be pretty short is the idea.
And the other way that you could do it, if in any way you didn't qualify for a bridged loan or weren't interested, is if you find something you want, go under contract. Yours is going to sell. Although I guess if technically you couldn't close, and we never say never to problems popping up. The other thing would be you can put contingencies in. And I've had people say, oh, that's too rough. Why would a buyer accept this? In my market, they would. So to put a contingency and just post it in the MLS and say, this seller will not accept an offer that does not have a contingency in it that protects the seller, that says until they find a house this doesn't close. And maybe you put a time limit on it, whatever. But there are buyers in my market that would take that. If they could be accepted, they would do it. You could do a lease back. You could say, I'm willing to close, and then I need so much time. We granted that to the seller of the house for my daughter. We gave them an entire month to live there after closing.
Well, and you're pushing the closing date too. So you maybe closings in a couple months, and then you're doing, free rent backs are super popular right now, right? Free rent back of even a month or 2. So you end up having a pretty decent cushion, 4 months, 3 months.
And if you live in a place with new construction, that's become almost the secret sauce among my cohorts at my brokerage. And we do have a lot of new construction here. In all fairness, the builders really can't keep up. So that's not an easy answer. It's not easy. And we were talking about it yesterday, and they're looking at a year build time. So, not easy. But the interesting thing is you get them under contract now, the crazy rate of price increase, they're going to walk in with equity a year from now. So they're
Right.
locking in prices. Some builders are putting in really, really strict guidelines to protect themselves with regard to forfeiture of earnest money and even extra earnest money and things like that.
Yep.
But new construction, know the builders in your area, know what they have, know what the options are, know the prices, know the build times. All of these can be things that you have in your pocket to be prepared when they say, I'm concerned. What if I don't find something I want? And here's the thing I coached for my coaching clients on. She was all ready with, okay, I'll bullet out the things. And I said, no. When they throw up the objection, say, that's a great question. Tell me why you're considering moving.
Yep.
Don't offer your solutions. The solutions don't matter if we don't truly understand why they're considering moving.
Right.
You don't want to fire hose them with stuff that's not relevant to them if they're just sort of curious or just asking. So I want to say, don't be so quick to handle objections until you really know a person.
Yeah, and the stronger the motivation is, the more likely they are to be accepting of some of our suggestions. Right? If it's, well, if I find my dream house, we'll move, and if I don't, we won't. Those are not the people that are going to be packing up and ready to move into the temporary housing.
No.
Right? So I think asking them more questions, that's a constant theme on this show. I talk to clients about that every week. Ask more questions, and you need a reminder. You need a sticky note on your computer if this is a phone call. You need a rubber band on your wrist if it's an in-person conversation. Otherwise, you subconsciously go back to the way you've always done it,
right?
Which is not asking enough questions.
Well, and I want to clarify, Charlie, I think most of us are hoping we have the answer. And when we feel we do, we're so excited.
Right.
We want to prove our value.
Yeah, we want to be helpful, of course. Yeah.
I know what to say. And the most helpful thing you can do is say, that's a great question. Tell me why you're asking.
Right.
Now you're a kind, professional, calm, conversationalist, right? The best conversationalist is the one who asks all the questions and shuts up. So I would say, yes, have them in your pocket, but make sure you know what they need. And as I already said, don't try to convince anybody. That's not what we do for a living. We don't force people to move or convince people to move for a living. That's not our job.
Right.
So it's a numbers game. I had someone tell me the other day, Charlie, that they've been calling and it isn't working. And in this case, it was circle dialing, but It's still a numbers conversation. So she said, I have been calling and I think of myself as good at this, and it's not working. I'm not converting. And I don't even know how many months this has been going on because she's relatively new to my schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And I finally asked, well, how many people total have you talked to? 20. 20 people. So go back to numbers, okay? Don't have 5 conversations and then think that we misled you and that it isn't working.
Right. The sample size just isn't big enough.
No, maybe 7% of them are considering moving. You've got to talk to 100 people before you get 7 babies, okay?
Yep.
So you've really got to talk to a lot of people. Get on there and be kind. Engage with people. I would be very direct. I would ask the real estate ask, and then I would transition to, how are you? Tell me about COVID at your house. I wouldn't butter them up and then start trying to pull business out of them. That doesn't feel good to me. You guys do it however it works for you.
Good.
So you had started by saying, do annual home value reports. And the reason I started with calling is because you can just pound through the phone, talk to a heck of a lot of people and find out who's motivated. So I would start there. But then the next thing is, the more people you do a home value report for, the more likely you are to get a,
right.
Maybe it is time for us to move to
Florida. I didn't realize.
We had no idea.
This much. Right.
Yep. Yeah. So now it's going to depend on what they want, and you may still have the what will I buy, but depending on what would cause them to be motivated to sell at these unprecedented high prices, that could be an incredible motivator, right? To see how much the homes around them have gone up in value. So Charlie, do you want to talk about that one, annual review?
Yeah, so this is a project we've discussed before. You can go to dominaterealestate.net, click on Get More Sellers. The project is loaded in there. There's different ways to do it, but we have a pre-written letter. We have the instructions on how to do a CMA from RPR. You can use, a different CMA source. You can use your MLS.
Sure.
I prefer to print the entire report, the property report in RPR. It's a 30-page report. Mm-hmm. We've talked about having a nice cover, binding it. I'm not an advocate for emailing the link. We
No,
all get lots of emails.
no.
When's the last time we got a professional 30-page report in the mail? Does
Yes.
it take longer? Yes. But everything that we're doing is showing off the kind of experience we want our clients to have, right? And part of that is that we take the time to do these value reports. So in the instructions that I wrote, I highlight the range. My letter says this is a computer generated report. If you'd like a more pinpoint value of your home, I'm happy to stop by, look at the house, give you a better price, that sort of a thing. So there's a little disclaimer on there, because I know there's agents concerned about what if the value's wrong and this and that. And I hear you, right? I hear you. So I think if you just discuss that in the letter, and then I'm a big fan of mail because it makes the follow-up easy. Hey, did you get my packet last week? It's the easiest script ever, right? So if you're afraid of the phone, send more mail. And at this conference we were at, it was suggested to do this twice a year, right? I recommend at least once a year. There's agents that are doing this twice a year. I think some agents that make a fortune from doing these.
Yes.
It's a huge lead pillar for them. And it's not just to their sphere, but I know there's some agents that do it around open houses. They door knock, they hand it to them, they put it in the door, they put it under the mat, whatever's appropriate for you, the safety first, the COVID, don't send your letters to me saying that I, demanded that you door knock if that's not appropriate for your market.
Right.
So why don't you tell me about the success of the agents that because they implemented this last year or late the year before maybe, and it really took off for them and their team, did it not?
Yes. Well, they've been doing it for years.
Okay.
And in the last 2 years, they started doing it at a really high level. And I shared with you that they were doing it in their two relative farms. They each, it's a mother and son who farm their own neighborhoods where they live. And then they would do it around their mega open houses.
Okay.
And initially they were super, super excited about their reach to strangers. But what they told me this past year, they doubled down. They hired a full-time assistant, thank heavens. And they started doing them absolutely consistently for their sphere and past clients, which they had been neglectful of their sphere for a really long time. They were kind of relying on their mega open houses to bring them stranger business, new business. And they doubled down on making sure that every single person in their sphere, which includes past clients, got one of these beautifully bound, full color, many, many page reports. And they focused on doing it over the holidays, hoping to leverage family time and things like that to better, eyeballs. And by the end of December, they had 18 queued up listings. So they had 18, coming soon listings queued up for January and February, which was unprecedented for them. And the Sun updated me just a few weeks ago to say, looking back on it, the ones that we did just for random people on streets didn't actually have that much impact, which brings us back to the beginning of where we started today's topic, which is talk to the people who already know, like, and trust you. What we're doing is we've got trust as the base. Now we're going to educate them about your knowledge, right? I've shared before my aha about how my sister isn't just a good agent, she's an extraordinary agent. And now that I've heard feedback from clients that I've referred to her about how incredible their service experience was, I trip over myself to refer her. And so as much as I knew she was good and I knew she was in real estate, I wasn't trying very hard to refer her. Your past clients know you're a realtor. Your friends know you're a realtor, but they may not know exactly what you know about the market. They may not know that you have something extraordinary to offer. When people say, do you know an agent? That they say, are you kidding me? You don't know Charlie Bengel?
Right.
That's what we're going for, that you want them to be raving fans of yours. So part of what I hope you will communicate to them is your knowledge of what's going on. And I recommend two different ways of doing that. You can do a 2020 market. I wish I'd come up with a good title for it, but like a look back, an overview. It's just sort of, because 2020 was an unprecedented year. And people sort of know that, but maybe they don't. And once you really do the numbers and you show them year over year prices, year over year pace of market, year over year total number of sales, all the things, and you package that up and you show people, and then maybe you show them where we're trending now, that just shows that you're super knowledgeable at your job. And then the other way, that I have is to say 2020 was an unprecedented year. And what it did was it caused me to revise the systems that I use for guiding buyers to win in this very competitive market,
Mm-hmm.
and coaching sellers on how to get top dollar in a top dollar market. Like when we say such and such is an unprecedented price, what if we could get 50 more than that?
Right.
And we're seeing that that's possible. And maybe that sounds greedy, but when your agent does a good job of helping you prepare for what's coming, present your home at the absolute best, pre-market it, and get the flood of people that weekend, right? You have an opportunity to absolutely maximize well above what was already a crazy high price. So what I explain is I now have newly implemented strategies for both buyers and sellers. That really impresses upon them that I'm not just sitting around pounding signs in the ground. So that's what I want to encourage you to do. Empower this army of yours. Every single one of them knows another 100 people.
Yep.
Imagine the exponential reach of educating the people who already know, like, and trust you about the value of your service and making them mouthpieces for your business.
I like it. I think that's a great way to wrap up. Our shows are now every Friday. Next Friday, the 12th, we're going to continue our theme of getting more listings. And the topic next week is going to be creative ways to get more listings. So I'm looking forward to us discussing that next week. It's good to see you. Have a good weekend.